Welcome to Time-Saving Research Tips for the Robbins College of Business and Entrepreneurship. My name is Brittany Squire, Outreach Services Specialist for Forsyth Library. If you haven't done so already, please introduce yourselves by name and major or department in the chat feature. Just a reminder that today's session will be recorded and made available on Forsyth Library's YouTube channel at a later date. You will receive an email with further instructions to access the recording. Please remain on mute during today's session, but feel free to ask any questions or make comments in the chat feature, and we'll get to those just as soon as possible. And just by being with us today, you have now been entered into a prize drawing. At the end of today's session, we will draw one winner, and so please stick with us until the very end. Now I would like to introduce Claire Nickerson. Claire is the library liaison for the College of Business and Entrepreneurship and all of the majors within that college. I am pleased to invite her to take over the presentation now.
Before we start, I just want to do a brief overview of what we'll be covering today. We're going to be going over searching ABI Inform, which is one of our largest business databases. It has a lot of different options for searching, and it also has some reports you can browse on specific topics. After we've done that, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about investor relations websites. I see we have several faculty members here, so you all may not need to go over that as much, but I find that for students, it's really helpful to become familiar with those so that they can find financial documents and other information about the company. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and pop over to the library homepage. Here on the library homepage, we're going to start by going to research databases. Now, before we do that, you might be asking yourself, why don't I just search in the search everything box here? The reason for that is that searches a lot of our different databases at once. And although you will get a lot of results doing that, they may not all be as relevant to business or to your topic. And also, our catalog there is just a directory. It will tell you in what database to find resources, but it doesn't actually store the resources the way a database does. So you're going to pop over into the databases here. And here at the top, you can sort by subject. You can sort by business and economics. There are also separate listings for economics and informatics, but I'm going to go ahead and go with business and economics because that will give us the broadest array of databases. And you can see that ABI Inform is right up here at the top. So it's one of our best bets for business research. I'll go ahead and open that up. All right, so here we are on the advanced search page. Before we actually make a search, I want to go over some of our search options, starting with this Lookup Companies/Organizations feature. This is really useful if you're researching a specific company, and I'll demonstrate it. Can anybody give me a suggestion for a company to look up here in the chat? The city has suggested Tesla, so that's what we'll go ahead and do. I recommend that you use the begins with feature because there are a lot of companies in this list, and sometimes it can be a little bit hard to find what you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and search for starts with Tesla. And usually I would recommend if you get multiple companies with the same name, you choose the one that has the highest number of results, which will be over here on the right. So let's see if we have any that are larger. I'm going to guess that the correct one is this Tesla Incorporated because it has these 25,000 results, and that's probably what we're going to want. You can suggest more than one here. Like I see we also have Tesla Motors. You may find different departments or sort of different subgroups of the company, but I'm going to just add that Tesla Incorporated to our search. The next thing that I want to do is talk about North American Industry Classification System codes, or NAICS codes. Those are a standard used by federal agencies when they are collecting statistics about businesses in the United States. And so this is really useful if you are looking for a specific industry. You can search by NAICS code here. Can I get a suggestion for an industry to search with? Obviously, we may want to take out our company/organization if we pick a different industry than the automotive industry at this point, but I just want to go through and demonstrate all of these search options. So can I get a suggestion for an industry or some type of business? I see Misty has suggested construction, so we'll go ahead and put in construction. In this case, I like to use the contains words feature. We usually get a few more options that way, and there aren't nearly as many NAICS codes as there are companies and organizations. So it looks like the general code for construction is 23. And then you'll notice as we get more specific, the numbers get longer from there. So we have 23 is construction versus 236220 is commercial and institutional building construction, which is a little bit more specific. So we'll go ahead and add that to our search. And you'll notice they put in this asterisk for us after the 23. That means we'll find any results that start with 23 and then any numbers after that. So we will be looking at not just construction, but all of the subcategories of construction here. Then we have a few other lookup tools. I'm not going to go over these in as much detail, but the classification code is for specific concepts within the world of business, like for instance, human resources or economic forecasting. Those are the types of terms that you could search for here. Then we have locations. You can get very specific with this, although generally you will not get a lot of results if you're too specific. I looked up Hays, Kansas while I was prepping for this presentation, and I think we only have 6 records in this database that are specific to Hays, although I think it's impressive that we have any. And then we have people. So if you're interested in, for instance, a specific CEO, you might be wanting to use that option. And then finally, we have products, if there's a specific product that you're looking at. Now, I also want to mention briefly these options here at the bottom, specifically source types. If you are a student, your instructors may ask you specifically to look for scholarly journal articles. And we see that that's an option here. So scholarly journals are published periodically like magazines, but they're a little bit different for a couple of reasons. First of all, the writers and the audience. So the writers in scholarly journals are usually professors or researchers, and they're writing for an audience of other professors or researchers. You will also see scholarly journals called peer-reviewed journals. That means that every article is reviewed by at least 2 experts in the field before it gets published. So you're going to get very high quality information when you look at scholarly journals, but they do take a little bit of time to publish. So if you're interested in something that happened yesterday, you might be better off with some newspaper articles, something like that. The other type of resource that I particularly want to point out here is trade journals. Trade journals are similar to scholarly journals, except that the writers and the audience are a little bit different. So trade journals, the articles are usually written down. I'll answer that question in a moment, Misty. They're usually written by people who work in a specific industry for an audience of other people who work in that specific industry. So we could have, for instance, a trade journal about construction, and those may or may not be peer-reviewed. Misty, you asked, is there a drill down for peer review? Can you clarify what you mean by that? I'm not sure I'm following you.
I'll just pop on via audio real fast. I thought you had said within scholarly journals you could select peer-reviewed extra, but usually those are peer-reviewed, so I might have just heard you wrong. So I was just making sure that if there was an option to mark it, that I knew how to mark it.
Yes, there is actually an option to select peer-reviewed resources specifically, regardless of whether they're scholarly or trade journals. And we'll find that in the filters actually after we search. So there is an option that's just not here on this page.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing that I want to point out here is the document type. The document type that I get asked for most often is case studies. Case studies can be very hard to find if you don't have a database specifically for case studies. So this is a great feature to be aware of, particularly if you're a faculty member and you're maybe looking for case studies to use with your students. So hopping back up to the top here, I'm going to go ahead and clear this form because we've put in a lot of options now that really are not compatible. And if we get too picky, we are probably not going to get a lot of results. So let us talk for a minute about our actual search boxes here. This is the advanced search. And you'll notice it has multiple search boxes. And in fact, we can add additional search boxes if we feel the need to do that. Now, the reason that we have multiple search boxes is because most of our library databases, including ABI and Form, use something called keyword searching. If you have used like a web search like Google, you are familiar with something called phrase searching, where you can type a phrase as long as you want into the search box, and you'll get a long list of results. You can type an entire sentence and it will work. Our databases, they don't work quite like search engines. They will get confused if you type a really long phrase in any of these boxes. So we break up our search by what we call keywords. And a keyword can actually be 1 to 3 words, but they are short. And we'll put one of our keywords in each of these boxes. So I see previously Tom had suggested searching for construction management. So let's take advantage of that and put construction in our first box and management in our second box. You'll notice that our boxes are connected by a little drop-down menu that says and, or, not. These are operator words. Technically, they're called Boolean operators after a mathematician named Boole, who came up with this way of searching. But these are useful for different reasons. So when we're searching for the intersection of construction and management, we use and. We'll find only articles that are about both construction and management together. If we used or, we would get results that were about one or the other, but not necessarily both together. And this is useful when we want to use maybe synonyms. So if we did maybe, instead of management, we could do construction or perhaps industrial architecture, something like that. It's really good for synonyms when you have 2 terms that seem equally likely to yield results. So you can use or to search both of them, and then you don't have to conduct 2 separate searches. The not operator is useful when we're getting a lot of results that we don't want. So generally, this is not something you would start with. It would be usually after you conducted a search and you see what kind of results you get. Then you would, if you're getting a lot of results that you didn't want, come back and modify your search, maybe here in the third box, and add a not for whatever it is that you were getting that you didn't want. Now we do have some options here for being specific about where exactly we want to search. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and stick with anywhere, just a keyword search to start with. So, quick review here. Which of our 3 operators do we think will give us the fewest results based on what I said about how we use each one? So I see an and I see an or. Oops, not. Okay, we have all three of them. Anyone else want to weigh in? Yeah, right. So the answer is usually not, usually and. It could be not if most of the results that we're getting are results that we don't want and we get rid of, say, 90% of the results. But usually it's going to be and. And the reason for that is that we're looking at the intersection of two different topics. So if you consider a Venn diagram, and one side of the Venn diagram is articles about construction, and the other side of the Venn diagram is articles about management. Articles about construction management, construction and management are going to be in that middle section. So we're going to get a very small number of results. Whereas if we used or, we would get all of the results in both circles, so a lot larger number of results. So here, instead of having two criteria and we can take one or we can take the other, we're looking for articles that contain both criteria. So we're being pretty picky here about what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and search here. Yeah, right. So we got a really large number of results. This is not unusual when we're searching databases, particularly very large databases. And it is not like Google, again, where the best results are at the top. Usually we don't actually want these many results. This many results would usually indicate that our search was not sufficiently specific. So what we want to do at this point is make our search more specific so that we get the results that we're really looking for. So let's talk briefly about these filters over here on the left. Misty had asked previously, is there a drill down for peer reviewed? And the answer is yes. That's this box here. And you'll notice that after we do that, our source type goes down significantly. Previously, before we put on that peer reviewed filter, we had a lot more source types. Now you'll notice that the vast majority of the ones that we have are scholarly journals, although we did get a few other things that are peer reviewed, like conference papers. And you'll also note that our number of results really went down a lot as well. The other box up here that I want to talk about is the full text. You will notice after each of our search results, underneath it will either say find a copy or it will say full text. Now, the ones that say full text, those are articles that we can read right here in this database without going anywhere else. The ones that say find a copy are what we call indexed, which means the database gives you a description of the article because it thinks you might be interested in that article based on what you searched for, but this database doesn't actually have the entire text of the article. So if you read the summary and then you decide that you want the full article, you would click on this find a copy option, and it brings up this Find It at Forsyth tool, which should take us back to the library catalog. And it tells us for this, the full text is available. And here in this View It section, it tells us which databases it's available in this case, Sage Premier and Sage Premier 2011. So that is one of the advantages of searching in a database that does indexing, is that it helps your search be a little bit broader while still finding relevant results. Now, if we clicked on this Find a Copy and the Find It at Forsyth, and our catalog said that we did not have it, you can actually still get those articles using something called Interlibrary Loan. And I'll hop back over to the library homepage here. So over on the left side of the library homepage, under Services, we have Interlibrary Loan. When you request an article via Interlibrary Loan, you will need something called an ILL account. And the first time that you do that, you have to sign up, but it's very straightforward. It just asks for your name and email address and a couple of other things. And then there's a short form that you can fill out to request the article. And we will get it from another library on your behalf. Usually that takes around 2 to 3 days unless it's a specific, particularly obscure article, obscure conference paper maybe that not a lot of people have. And once you have done that, you will get an email notification letting you know that your article is available for download. So popping back over to our search results here, we'll go ahead and turn on the full text filter just for convenience so that we only find articles that we can read here in this database. And at this point, we could narrow down our source type as we did in the advanced search options before we searched. We also have this publication date slider. It looks like the earliest items that we got were in 1857. I'm going to guess that whatever was written about construction management in 1857 maybe is not super relevant to us today. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this over maybe to, since 2010, that's still a fairly large chunk of time. And I could be wrong, but I'm guessing construction management maybe is not a field that changes extraordinarily quickly. The other filter that I want to specifically point out here is the subject filter. Now, we did what's called a keyword search. You remember when we searched over on the right side, it said we were searching everywhere. So we're talking about the article title, we're talking about the name of the journal, we're talking about the abstract, which is a short summary of the article, and we searched in all of that. But these subject terms here, these are the primary subjects that an article is about. So you'll see we've got some kind of generic results here, but if we click more, our count goes down and we might find something that is specifically more relevant to us. Like for instance, we were interested in employees in relation to construction management. We could click this box here and apply it. Alternatively, if there are subjects that we're not particularly interested in, we can exclude those. We'll go ahead and apply this. And you can see as we are doing this, that our number of results is continuing to go down. Another way that we could continue to modify our search is we could at this point add additional search terms. I tend to think that under about 50 is an ideal number of results, but we have limited time today, so we are not going to go quite that far. Just a brief look at what one of these full records looks like. So we get here the abstract, which as I said is a short summary of the article, and in this case they've broken down the abstract into sections, so that's very convenient. And then here we have the full text. We should also have the full text in PDF up here in case you want to download that. And I often find that it's a little bit easier to read the PDF version just because the layout with things like headings is, I don't know, I find a little bit more user-friendly. You'll also notice on here, under the author's names, or sometimes with a footnote at the bottom, we have the author's affiliations. This is really great to know if you are writing about an article, what sort of authority the authors have, what makes them experts in this field that you would want to use their article. Then we have the abstract/details, where we have a list of all of the subject terms. So if we wanted more articles, maybe that are similar to this, say about well construction, we could click on that and we would be searching by subject for well construction. We'd find other similar articles on this topic. One other thing that I want to point out, here at the bottom, we have something called a DOI, which is short for Digital Object Identifier. And sometimes we have access to the same article in more than one database. And the URL where we find that article is going to be different for each database, but the DOI is going to be the same. It's the unique number that identifies this article. So if you're writing a citation for this article, probably in APA format if you're in the College of Business, this is what you would want to include. Some articles, particularly older articles or articles that are not from journals, don't have a DOI. In that case, you would want to use the URL. And I would recommend that you use this. This is what we call the Permalink. So it's a shorter version of the link that we find up here in the address bar. And this link will always work later. This particular database doesn't tend to have issues with coming back later. Some of our other databases, if you copy the link from the address bar here, it will not work later. But in general, I just recommend if there is a permalink, the shorter version of the link, I would recommend using that. Before we hop out of ABI Inform, one quick thing that I want to note is the browse feature. I'm not going to go over this in a great deal of detail, but the browse feature, if you're not sure what to search for, this is a really great place to start. It contains reports about specific industries and specific markets. When we're talking about markets, we're usually talking about specific countries. Like for instance, we might want to know what the construction industry is like in China, and we could find that in one of these reports. We also have reports about specific commodities. We have some older annual reports from companies containing financial information. And then we have some reports about specific countries and their economic status. So this might be particularly useful for those of you who are in economics. All right. Any questions before we move on from ABI Inform? Okay, I am not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and close these. And the other thing that I want to talk about today is investor relations websites. So if you're thinking about where might be the best place to go to find information about a company, I certainly recommend that you use our library databases. How did I get to this page? I typed google.com into the address bar here. Oh, how did I get to the browse page? Yes, there was a browse tab at the top. Thank you for that, Cindy. So investor relations websites are a really good place to start your search as well, because companies have particular information that they want you to know, usually positive things about the company, and also some financial reports that they're legally required to make. So if you want to find out about the financial status of a company, the investor relations website is a great place to start. So can I get suggestions on a company to investigate? We had some other suggestions previously. Let's see here.
Claire, I think there was a suggestion for Visa and for Amazon earlier in the chat.
Yes, but I see that now there's a suggestion for Disney, and so I'm going to reward that by going to Disney. So here we have Disney, and then if we put in quotation marks, investor relations, that should get us the result that we're looking for. Those quotation marks, you can also use this trick in our databases. Those quotation marks will find these words together as a phrase. All right. So here we are, investor relations. And Disney, I think, is a really good choice. We have a lot of fodder here for information. So investor relations, the primary thing that you're going to find here is annual reports, which are, they contain current financials for the company in terms of, what they spent money on in the past year, what they made money on the past year, how much money they made, some important things that happened and maybe in the past year. And usually there's a lot of commentary about what happened because this is a report for investors, for shareholders. It does tend to be a little bit biased. Now the numbers, of course, are less biased, but the commentary usually is highly biased toward making the company look good. So just keep that in mind as you are looking at annual reports. And it looks like Disney has theirs up for quite a while. Many companies will take down the older ones, and that's why you might want to look for them, say in ABI Inform. We also have these quarterly earning reports. These are reports that go to the Securities and Exchange Commission, but they have not been audited yet and approved in the way that the annual reports have been, at least the quarterly ones. There's also something called a 10K, which is an annual SEC filing. Yes, here we go. So we had the 10Qs, those are the quarterly reports, and then we should also have 10Ks somewhere here. I'm not going to go through and look for them because we're rapidly running out of time, but they should be here somewhere. The other thing that I want to point out when you go to an investor relations website is that usually they have some information about the company that is positive, things like their public relations policy, any charity programs that they do, any corporate social responsibility policies. This is a really great place to look for that. So if, for instance, we were interested in Disney's stance on diversity and inclusion, they have helpfully included their statement here, which is much shorter than these things usually are. But they have, it looks like, some different examples of their work in diversity and inclusion, although I don't know, this is not as impressive as I had hoped. But surely some of their other social responsibility options are better. Any questions about investor relations websites?
I do. Just first, I forgot, I couldn't get in. Are you recording this?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, that solves all my problems. And have you mentioned about how you all have put together websites for specific research websites for particular courses?
I have not mentioned that, but that is a good point, Skip.
It's great. I really, okay, yeah, I'll let it speak for itself.
So here also on the library homepage, we started in research databases, but another place that you can start your research is in subject and course guides. And we do have at least one guide for every subject that is taught here on campus. And if you're an instructor, you can request a guide specifically for your course. So here under business and economics, what Skip was referring to is he has a guide specifically for BCom 301, business communication. And it has some resources for a specific assignment that they do, an analytical report. And so it has here on the finding sources tab some suggestions for databases to start with. You'll notice ABI Inform here is up at the top. Some other sources that are not library sources, some information about evaluating sources for quality in various different ways, some information about how to cite sources in APA style and how to use citation management software. They make a presentation, so there's a little bit of information here about finding images, and some information also about writing in a scholarly style. So if this is something that you are interested in for your course, feel free to send me an email and let me know, and we can get together and chat about what you would like on your guide.
Thank you, Claire, for your presentation. I hope you all felt that you received some great tips and resources for researching within the business industry. I would like to wrap up the session with just a few details on where you can go for some additional help. First and foremost, you are welcome to reach out directly to your library liaison. In this case, Claire Nickerson is the liaison for the College of Business and Entrepreneurship. You can also ask a librarian in a variety of ways, via phone, text, email, by appointment, or by using the live chat feature on the library's homepage. You can ask a librarian for help at any stage of the research process. Forsyth Library is proud to launch a research help app. You can take out your mobile device right now and scan the QR code on the screen to install the app on your phone. By installing the app, you will have access to the Ask a Librarian service, to tutorials to help you learn how to navigate Forsyth Library's website and resources, and also to subject and course guides, similar to what Claire mentioned earlier in today's session. That concludes our session for today. Please feel free to follow us on social media and ask us if you have any questions or concerns. Have a great day.